And you could tell Bryan Freedman was doing his absolute best to hold Harvey's feet to the fire. And yet, at every turn, this man kept deflecting, deflecting, deflecting. Even when he chose to take responsibility, he still found a way to not make it his responsibility. And Kim Kardashian did not pass her bar exam, which people are taking glee in, and I just don't understand. Let's get into it. F around and find out. F around and find out. Hello there, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of F and Find Out. I'm your host, Elsie. I really appreciate you for hanging out with me. I'm sure by now all of you have had a chance to see Bryan Freedman going on Harvey's podcast, Two Angry Men, I believe it's called. I have to be honest, I'm not ecstatic that he chose to go on Harvey's show because at every turn, Harvey and TMZ as a whole have been anything but accurate in reporting anything regarding Justin Baldoni. So I don't know, like, was Billy not available? But then again, I think if they had chosen to go on Billy, considering Billy's name had popped up in the subpoenas, that might not look so great. And you know what? Maybe if I do think about it, because TMZ's audience is the most misinformed, you hope you go on his podcast and maybe the audience hears you differently. I don't know the decision that went into that. I'm just here to catch you up on some of the highlights of the interview. Before we jump into the Harvey interview with Bryan Freedman, I saw Kim Kardashian posted, as well as everybody else at this time, that she did not pass the bar. And this is exactly what she said. Well, I'm not a lawyer yet. I just play a very well-dressed one on TV. Referring to her new TV show All's Fair on Hulu, which I actually watch. It's not bad. They put the first 3 episodes out. It's a little bit slow for me. It's not a bad show. I heard it got 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not a person who typically goes to Rotten Tomatoes for my reviews. I just watch for myself. Some of the outfit choices I wouldn't make. The makeup could have been better. The hair definitely could have been better in certain scenes. The script could be, stepped up a couple notches, but it's not a bad show. It's not absolutely gutter. 6 years into this law journey, and I'm still all in until I pass the bar. No shortcuts, no giving up, just more studying and even more determination. Thank you to everyone who has supported and encouraged me along the way so far. Falling short isn't failure, it's fuel. I was so close to passing the exam, and that only motivates me even more. Let's go. People are laughing. There are people making content saying she's not a lawyer, all this and that. And I have a little bit of a different outlook on it, maybe because I probably aspire to be a lawyer. Honestly, if I had the resources to do it the way she is, which is like reading the law, doing the apprenticeship under like attorneys and then taking the exam, I would do it that way because I just don't have time in my day-to-day life to like go to school. Typically, I already did that. I already got my bachelor's in economics and business. I already got my double degree. I already got my concentration in leadership, all of that. I don't know that I want to go back through the college process. So people who put her down for trying to do it this way or even doing it, like I don't get it, because okay, she could not do it. She has enough money for her grandkids, right? She doesn't need to do this. And so far, all her work has been for the betterment of society. She's been defending people. She's been looking out for people. And I don't see anything wrong with her trying to better her life, whether it's through becoming a lawyer or whatever. It's not like she's trying to become a surgeon and like cut into people or whatever, She's taking on lost cases, if you will, cases nobody even wants to touch anyway. So I wish people would be a little bit more kinder to her, regardless of how you feel about her family or, whatever hoopla surrounds them. I think this is admirable. I'm sorry she wasn't able to pass. Hopefully she gets it next time. Okay.
Blake Lively is now saying to Justin Baldoni, cough up $161 million for smearing me, ruining my acting career, and ruining my business. And that doesn't even get into the damages she said she suffered for what she claims is sexual harassment on the set. So, Bryan, I'm just so curious how you received the latest filing from Blake Lively that the smear campaign cost her that kind of dough.
Well, since there was, we obviously have detailed pretty well that we don't believe there was a smear campaign. We're not surprised at anything we see in this case. It's been quite a whirlwind of a case. Feel good about trial. We feel excited about going to trial. And, I always talk about in every case, sometimes you want somebody to want an outrageous amount of money. Sometimes that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
There's been a lot of reporting, and I know this may surprise you, Bryan, but I don't think accurate reporting, that there was a deadline that was missed. Are you able to talk about that? Because I have a theory on what really happened.
Well, we should just say this involves the dismissal of Justin Baldoni's countersuit.
Sure. There were no deadlines that were missed. We're always glad when that doesn't happen. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, so is the malpractice insurer usually.
Exactly. And I'm not sure how anybody even thought that a deadline would be missed. Before anyone can file an appeal, there needs to be a final judgment. In order for there to be a final judgment, the judge has to actually issue a final judgment. And then there's a certain amount of days that you have after that to go ahead and file a document called a notice of appeal. So there's going to be some time until you could even possibly file a notice of appeal.
Do you intend to appeal?
I think that we intend to take a look. Timing is everything, right? Well, where will we be when the time for appeal comes? Right. I expect that where we'll be when the time for appeal comes is we will be victorious.
So before he goes on any further, I wanted to say you can clearly tell, like Mark, I guess, this was set up. This was definitely set up to help TMZ clean up their mishap of that entire Justin Baldoni's case is gone. They missed the deadline, which is why, again, I'm a little bit angry that Bryan Freedman chose to go there to give them an audience, right? And by way, forcing us to give them viewership. And then for this,
I will tell you this, the case has always been about, was there sexual harassment? Case has always been about, was there a smear campaign? That's really as simple as it is. And so, trial will tell, a jury will make that determination factually. And we feel really confident that we're going to get the right answers to both those questions.
And by the way, Bryan and Harvey, the idea that was put out there, and I know what that is, talk about spin, that came from the Blake Lively camp, that there was a deadline that was missed.
the spin came from Blake's team. They're the ones that pretty much gave TMZ the tip, if you will, that Justin Baldoni's team missed a deadline.
That came from the Blake Lively camp, that there was a deadline that was missed, trying to portray this as some kind of a legal victory when literally it focuses and like a laser onto the claims. And by the way, if you have followed this, and Harvey, I don't know anybody in the media who's followed this more closely than you have, everything that Bryan has developed so far that I've seen, and I'm just looking from the outside in, I'm not involved at all.
I'm going to pause there and I say I disagree because Mark is saying I don't know anybody who has followed this closely than Harvey. I disagree. If Harvey was following this as close as he should be, a mistake like they missed a deadline would never happen. A mistake like they forgot about a deadline never happened. So that's not accurate. He might be capitalizing on it and posting ridiculous headlines, yes, but following it closely is not true.
So your client is definitely winning the TikTok war. And I don't say that lightly because that's a really important war, because that's his.
I'm sorry, but Harvey's calling it a TikTok war. All he wants to say is Justin is winning the heck out of the public opinion war. He's calling it TikTok almost to minimize it, but the word he's tripping on is public opinion. The public is squarely behind Justin. It's not even like a little bit of a like, oh, you just need a few numbers over there and it will sway to Blake's side. It is a good, if I'm not exaggerating, a good 90-10. Maybe too much, 80-20, but still, it's very, very, very heavily in Justin's favor.
And he's winning that war. Even with the dismissal and everything else, he's winning the TikTok war. But legally, if this thing goes to trial, I mean, it just feels like you're going to watch the rubble bounce on both sides because, she'll make claims, he'll make claims. it's going to be he said, she said, and you know,
On the contrary, I think she'll make claims. It will be a she said, he said, while he provides his evidence. So it's not going to be she said, he said, nobody knows what to do. It's going to be she said, but she has no evidence to back it up. Then he says, and you have all the evidence to back up everything he says. Two completely different scenarios, if we're being honest.
it doesn't feel as clean as Johnny and Amber, where he ended up with that decisive victory. Just feels like this case, my gut has been telling me, and I feel like maybe I'm wrong now, that this is just not going to go to trial because it's in nobody's interest. It's going to settle somehow.
I think that, people have been saying that for a long time now. And I think when you have a case that involves the issues this case involves, sometimes the only way to resolve it is trial. I see that look, people are really dug into this case, and rightfully so. And I think it's an important case for everyone. It's an important case, frankly, for society, in an unusual way. But I think the case does go to trial. I think the case has to go to trial. I think that it has to go to verdict. I think that from Justin Baldoni's standpoint, who, by the way, I've now known him for almost a year.
I'm going to let him get through that. But I heard that and I was like, oh, that is so cool for him to say. Because he really didn't have to say that. I mean, he's his lawyer and you want him to look good. But like he paused in his sentence to say that almost like he just had to get that out,
Incredible man, like incredible. Not like a good person, an incredible man, truly. And I just think that he has to go to trial and let a jury of his peers decide. Do these facts rise to the level of sexual harassment? Was there a smear campaign that he participated in? Those kinds of things. And to clarify, like smear campaign, there's not really a cause of action, right?
I was going to say smear campaign is.
Well, it's sort of defamation. I mean, it really, it boils down to if somebody is telling the truth about something.
Actually, Bryan is correct. Smear campaign is not really a cause of action because what do you mean smear campaign? You cannot say us saying you got married on a plantation is a smear campaign. It's a fact. You did it. You cannot say us digging up videos of you doing random stuff that's literally looks bad for you, but at the time, nobody seemed to care. It's not a smear campaign. It's factual. But then Harvey jumps in and it's like, it's kind of like defamation. No, it's kind of like your past coming back to haunt you. What are you not understanding, Harvey?
Somebody, there's not really a cause of action. It's a smear based on false facts, it seems.
Well,
except there are no false facts here. Nothing has been false. Nobody has published anything false about Blake Lively. When it comes to whatever she's calling a smear campaign, if anything, call it like a media tactic, whatever. But a smear campaign is just wrong. It's your own history being put out on display for the world to see.
Who you are can truly come out in a trial, and Justin is a fantastic person. And I think that people will be able to see and hear him for the first time in a year.
You took Blake's deposition, right?
I did.
So how'd that go? Did you score points? Can you give us some overview?
I don't think I'm allowed to talk about that.
But what about broadly? Are you satisfied that what you got out of that deposition could torpedo her claim of sexual harassment? Did you score points? Can you give us some overview?
I don't think I'm allowed to.
Harvey asked that and it annoyed me because for a fact he can't tell you that. Then you ask him that and you could tell from the way the last sentence ended to how they jumped in there, something more was said, but you left this in your podcast to leave room so you can probably write an article. Oh, we asked Bryan Freedman about the deposition and then he deflected or whatever. He can't tell you that, but yet you're going to ask him about it only for him to tell you, I don't think I could tell you that, but you already knew that, Harvey. Weird that you would do that. I don't get that.
think broadly, I can just say this, that I'm really, really looking forward to the trial. It's been a long time coming. There's been a lot of noise about the case. Some of the most difficult parts, I think, about hearing about the case in the media has been mainstream media and how mainstream media has treated the case. And if you look at it, and you really kind of zero in on it, there are a lot of reasons why mainstream media has taken this case and twisted the words and misrepresented what's really been going on in the case. And it's done that in part because there are, big time, powerful, important relationships with certain people and certain media, that's owned by, very few people in this town. And that's why when you talk about the TikTok people, they're not really my people. They're your people. They're everyone's people. They're the people, right? They're the jurors.
And I'm interested in what you said, that you think mainstream media, it sounds like what you're saying is they haven't given Baldoni a fair shake. From my seat, it feels to me like, I certainly know on our side, Blake is taking lots of lumps.
First of all, how disingenuous and inaccurate for Harvey to say that. What do you mean, Blake, from your seat, from your side, Blake has taken lumps? You have not written one bad article about her. The ones that are supposed to be bad for her, you somehow spin to be good. And then when it's supposed to be perfectly fine or neutral for Justin, you literally go a step further to make it look catastrophic for him. So how could you possibly sit there in front of his lawyer and say, from my side, from my seat, she's taking lumps? What are you talking about?
I really haven't seen that. What I've seen is things misconstrued, for example, on TMZ itself. You saw, you saw it on TMZ, they said that deadlines were blown and Justin has walked away from the appeal. He's walked away from his case. He's fine with the fact that the case was dismissed. That was on TMZ.
No,
that was not true.
We messed that up. I agree with you. But that wasn't, look, we're not going to say something that we know is not true because it's ultimately going to get corrected. We messed that up.
Well, you're definitely not going to say that you knew was on TMZ.
No,
that was not true.
We messed that up. I agree with you. But that wasn't, look, we're not going to say something that we know is not true because it's ultimately going to get corrected. We messed that up.
Well, you're definitely not going to say that you knew that it was untrue and said it. That's for sure.
And also, if we're being honest, Harvey is acting as though we corrected that. No, we made you, me, other users, TikTok users, other people like covering this case called you and your publishing house out. We called you out. People like me, people like other creators covering this case called you out, specifically NTMZ, and said, this is not what it means. This is not what you're actually covering. This is wrong, blatantly wrong. And you didn't like fix it, because he goes ahead to say, we fixed it. We corrected the story. You changed the headline. You did not make a post, like a whole brand new post, like, hey, we made a mistake and this is what's correct. You just changed the headlines as if people care about that. The first story, if you get it wrong, can never get the same traction as the second one when you decide to fix it, unless it's more catastrophic. Like if you say firstly, right, Justin Baldoni made the headlines, then you come back to say, oh, mistake, he actually missed it. That's going to get more headlines than when you say he missed it, then come back to correct and say, oh, by the way, he didn't. We made a little mistake there. But you didn't even accept your fault. You just changed your headline in the dark of the night and expected people would read the update. Not the same thing as taking responsibility. Not the same thing.
We corrected it, right? There's
Yeah,
no, it doesn't
Harvey?
serve us to put a story up that we end up correcting. We screwed that up. And I just agree with you. I agree.
But
if you want to talk about us, I felt he's been winning this all along.
Very disingenuous. Since when have you, Harvey, or your publication felt Justin was winning this? Sorry.
I'm not seeing this as, oh wow, Blake's winning this thing at all. at all, even though her lawsuit is still the active one right now. I'm not seeing it that way.
I can't really judge, at all, like who's winning or not.
Well, so I'm just looking at pieces of the case that have come out, and the Taylor Swift element of the case has been devastating for Blake Lively. And I'm talking about in terms of public perception. So yeah, in terms of who's taking the lumps, Taylor Swift, the unedited.
And has TMZ written anything about that? No, actually. So what is he talking about?
Dance and other things. It seems to me it's been Blake Lively.
I look at it a little different. I haven't seen it that way, probably because I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, what's the jury verdict going to be? That's what matters as to whether he's going to be able to work again. It matters, as to Jamie Heath. It matters, as to Melissa Nathan. It matters as to Jen Abel. It matters as to all of the people that have been sued in the case. And I think that when we talk about, Harvey, in 6 months from now, we won't talk about lumps, or we won't talk about who's winning or who's losing. We'll have a verdict.
And what occurred to me today when I read that Blake Lively was saying she's incurred $161 million in damages because of a smear campaign, that there's a principle in the law called unclean hands, that if you claim somebody else did you dirty, but you did them dirty the same way, a pox on both their houses. And I wondered that could this case just end up where the jury just says, I don't want to hear from either of you guys. You both were doing that. Case to, you end up getting the verdict because the jury just doesn't want to give money to anybody because both people were playing the game.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that relates to this case. I can talk generally as I understand what a publicist does, right? I think publicists call, reporters and news outlets all the time to make sure that a story is correct, or to make sure that their client's side of the story is heard. I mean, I think that's kind of normal operating procedure. And I don't mean that specifically to the Baldoni case at all. I just mean it to any story. Something pops up, you call up, you ask a question, and then you verify what that information is so you make sure you get it right.
Okay, so now you want to know the way it really works?
Sure.
They spin more than a dreidel, number one, that they are not just giving you facts. They are...
Right there, I don't know if that was a purposeful bait and switch that Bryan Freedman was able to pull off. Like, did he bait Harvey into stepping into the whole explaining how it really works when publicists call and how he does his business? Or he just got lucky and Harvey just happened to fall in a trap of telling on himself about the fact that publicists spin, which is not news to any of us, right? But to hear him say it means something. But I wonder if Bryan purposefully, again, baited and switched him on that, or it just fell in his lap.
Calling you with a spin that they want to put on for their client, and they feel that's their job. So we get this. I mean, I've got literally thousands of calls from most every publicist, and every publicist can take a set of facts and shade it or change it.
So let me ask you a question. Since you know that to be true, when a publicist calls you up, you're not just going to take what they say and say, okay, this is true, I'm going to put it up the way they are. You're going to go out and try to verify the story.
Yeah, but they can listen. And sometimes, I'm not saying they always do things that are unverifiable. That's not true. And sometimes what they tell you is from their side, and they'll make an allegation that really hurts the other side, but they can get it out there. Now, if you're a news outlet and they make that kind of allegation and you call the other side and they just don't want to comment or whatever, and a lot, and it has to be case by case, but those things get out.
And by the way, while he's talking about this, like, I kept thinking, okay, so could he possibly be meaning the Star whatever magazine article about the jumper who went to Taylor and Travis's house? Like, could he possibly be referencing the fact that they didn't write it out first? Because you guys realized Star Magazine put it out, then everybody took it and credited Star Magazine, like according to Star Magazine. So I wonder if maybe he was trying to, maybe not even hint at that, like on purpose, but like his subconscious was just like thinking about that. So,
And whether they get out by us or somebody else, they get out. And, you know, when you talk about getting frustrated with bad information, you know, we've seen things that are just crazy that get out there. And I'm not saying we're immune from it at all. I'm not acting like a knight, you know, in shining armor here, because I admit to you, we screwed up the appeals story.
Right. I understand that. But if that's the case, and reputable outlets, whether it be TMZ, whether it be Deadline, whether it be any other publication, they would know that that's what happens, and they would want to make sure before they put out their own story that story is truthful and accurate, or as accurate as it can be.
And you want to know the truth, and this is the dirty little secret. Yeah, you're right, but guess what they're looking for? They're looking for content, because if you don't put content up, you don't have a business. So then the question.
So there it is, Harvey. You said all of this and wound up all around just to end up saying you're going to post, or you're going to post anyway, because you're in the business of making content. It doesn't matter what the headline is going to say. It doesn't really matter if you verify it or not, because at the end of the day, you don't have a business if you don't have content. Thank you.
Let me ask you a question. How did you get the story wrong about the appeal?
Well, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus in my office. I know. And here's the thing. I think it was analyzed wrong. I think it was just analyzed.
What does that mean?
I don't know all the specifics, but.
I'm sorry, but what does it mean that it was analyzed wrong? Because I'm not an analyst. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a journalist. I read this docket like a regular person, and I understand it because it's in plain English. I knew exactly what I was reading when I saw the judge say judgment on the pleading, granted this, not granted that. I knew what it meant. So what do you mean it was analyzed wrong? What does that even mean?
I know kind of how this thing worked. And when I got involved in this thing, it became apparent that our story was wrong. And what my goal was at that point was, you got to make a correction if we're wrong, and tell me if we're wrong, and let's figure it out. But
you know what the problem is?
It took like a good 5 days before the correction was just posted yesterday. You guys put out that story beginning of the week. So what are you talking about?
It was just not analyzed right. It wasn't. I think the counting of it, Brian, in terms of the final judgment, I mean, this is what I think, that wasn't calculated in this. It was more when whatever that was filed, that was the countdown stage. I think that was it. I think that's what happened here, that they didn't count. Like I said, we get most things right. I mean, we just do. And we're really vigilant.
They get most things right, TMZ? You're literally known for reporting inaccurate information on purpose. What do you mean you're known for getting things right most of the time?
We have lawyers, we have researchers, we have producers.
Apparently not.
We have a lot of steps that we go through. We are not immune from mistakes. But what I'm saying to you is that, you know, generally, when you want to talk about a publicist calling and spinning a story and talking about, I have a source, I'm connected.
I like that. I mean, for the most part, he was pleasant, but for the portion of this thing, he didn't really seem amused. Bryan doesn't really seem amused by Harvey and his antics and trying to laugh certain things off. So I guess I can appreciate that.
Bryan, thanks for hopping on. We so appreciate it. We love having you on.
Yeah, no,
you're the best.
Both you guys are fantastic, and I love the podcast. So I'm going to try to be happy the rest of the day. You guys remain two angry men, and we'll talk later. Thank you.
I hope to God it wasn't ridiculously choppy because it kept cutting up. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know that Bryan needed to go on this podcast to have this conversation. He could have made a statement, let it be clear. TMZ had it wrong, all that. I don't know why he chose to give Harvey an audience. But again, you go where the problem is. It's kind of like a campaign trail, I guess. Like the TMZ audience is where there's a struggle the most. So I guess you go there and you hope to get to the bottom of the problem. So I guess I cannot be too mad about that. Well, that's going to be it for today. I appreciate you guys for hanging out with me. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you on the next one. Have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye.